The film starts with Abigail, a ballet performer. After her dance practice, she's picked up in a Rolls-Royce and driven to her father's estate. Meanwhile, some criminals plot to abduct her. Upon her arrival home, she heads to her room and chats on her phone. Unaware of the lurking criminals, they suddenly ambush her and use sedatives to render her unconscious. Swiftly, they abduct her and transport her to a concealed mansion. There, they rendezvous with their leader, Lambert. He instructs them not to disclose personal information among themselves or to Abigail. Lambert clarifies that their task spans 24 hours, with the most challenging part already completed. Now, their sole duty is to monitor her. Joey inquires about Abigail, and Lambert responds that she's the offspring of a wealthy individual on the verge of losing $50 million. Lambert opts to confiscate their phones to prevent tracing. Following this, the group indulges in the beverages available in the house. Joey declines to share her sweets with Dean, who feigns intelligence, attempting to guess everyone's background but falls short. When Joey taunts him, the rest place a wager to test her prowess. Using cues from their demeanor, attire, and traits, she accurately deduces each one's history. Frank formerly served as a detective. Peter acts as a foolish mafia associate. The hacker Sammy hails from affluence and participates for amusement. Rickles served as a sniper in the Marines, and Dean operates as a reckless driver. As a response, Frank deduces Joey as a recovering addict. Joey visits Abigail, who requests to remove her tight blindfold. Joey dons her mask for safety and complies, noticing Abigail's sore wrists. She repositions Abigail's hands to the front and reattaches the handcuffs for comfort. Joey informs Abigail they won't release her until her father provides the ransom. Concerned, Abigail inquires if they will harm her. Joey reassures her that as long as she cooperates and her father pays, she'll remain unharmed. During their conversation, Abigail reveals her name to Joey. Joey mentions she has a son the same age as Abigail. Abigail disputes their claim, asserting her father's lack of concern for her. While Joey prepares to depart, Abigail expresses her fear about her uncertain fate. Returning to the group, Joey informs Frank that Abigail hinted at her father's potential violence. Frank is queried about knowledge of the girl's father, to which he denies awareness. Later, Frank visits Abigail's room and discovers her lack of a blindfold. Concerned she may have seen his face, he engages in conversation with her. Abigail reassures him she hasn't seen his face and reluctantly reveals her father's identity as Christoph Lazar when questioned by Frank. Anxious, Frank exits her room and informs the group of his desire to depart. The team becomes uneasy and moves closer to him. Joey inquires about his distress. Frank reveals the girl is Christoph Lazar's influential and renowned daughter. Joey suggests providing her a meal, placing an anonymous call, and departing. Frank alleges Abigail saw his face due to Joey's actions, but she contends she was the only one with access to Abigail's room. Dean doubts Christoph's existence, considering him a fabrication, yet Frank persists in his claim. The group hesitates about Joey's decision to remove the girl's blindfold and considers the possibility of killing her. However, Joey opposes this notion. The group opts to proceed with their plan and disappear after obtaining their share of the money. Later, Rickles confides in Joey that he lacks trust in these individuals and urges them to stick together and watch out for one another. Joey concurs, stating she was also contemplating the same thing. Meanwhile, Dean gazes at an aged painting and perceives the resemblance between the girl in it and Abigail. He ventures into the cellar, and a door opens spontaneously. Perplexed, he enters the chamber and is startled by a rodent. When he attempts to depart, something unseen pulls him back. He cries out for assistance. Upon hearing his shouts, Sammy hastily descends to the cellar to investigate. Discovering him, she becomes alarmed to find his head has been severed. She alerts everyone, and upon witnessing Dean's lifeless form, Frank remarks that it seems as though a wild creature has torn him apart. Sammy notices the peculiar behavior of everyone, and they inform her about an individual named Valdez who oversees Lazar's operations. Several years back, the FBI apprehended 3 significant members of Lazar's syndicate. They were covertly detained on the top floor of a hotel. The night before their trial, 12 agents were in the adjacent room, and 2 guarded the door. The following day, the FBI entered and discovered their bodies severely injured. Limbs were missing, and heads bearing Valdez's mark were discovered. Subsequently, they opt to visit Abigail and locate her in her chamber. According to Rickles, Valdez might still be around despite her absence in that area. He decides to depart, but upon attempting to unlatch the door, he encounters another locked door and realizes they are trapped inside. Suddenly, the residence's security alarm activates, and they realize it's all a setup. Joey swiftly approaches Abigail and inquires if anyone else accompanied them, specifically the man with spectacles. Initially, Abigail denies it, but then she confesses that the man with spectacles coerced her into keeping it clandestine and threatened to harm her if she didn't comply. Joey asserts that she won't allow him to inflict any harm on her. Abigail divulges that he is employed by her father, and his name is Valdez. Abruptly, Rickles contacts her, reporting that someone pilfered his firearm. Joey disseminates the information that Frank's true identity is Valdez. They opt to search for an alternative exit from the residence. However, as they proceed, Joey detects a noise. She pivots and notices Rickles positioned oddly. Joey cautiously approaches him, but is stunned to discover he's been severely injured by someone descending the staircase. She hunts for Frank to question his intentions for bringing them to that spot with malicious intent. Frank draws his firearm, expressing his confusion and urging her to disclose her thoughts. She affirms he's Valdez, the person responsible for Dean and Rickles' demise. Frank doubts her claim, believing Abigail has influenced her and is attempting to sow distrust among them. He instructs Peter to address Abigail, prompting Peter to head to her room to eliminate her. Before he can fire, Joey intervenes and swiftly disarms him. Sammy and Frank also arrive, leading to a heated debate. Meanwhile, Abigail effortlessly frees herself from the handcuffs and rises, executing a ballet maneuver to reveal her true identity. She's indeed a vampire. Abigail pounces on Peter, poised to sink her teeth into him, but Frank intervenes, shooting her down. To everyone's astonishment, Abigail promptly sits up, her wound regenerating itself. Joey fires at her as well, but it's evident that bullets are ineffective, prompting them to flee and barricade the door. The group deliberates on their next steps, realizing Abigail was Valdez all along. All the doors are secured with magnetically sealed locks and thick shutters, making them impenetrable, and Sammy lacks the tools to bypass them. Tension rises, and when Peter requests they take a moment, Frank seizes him by the throat, threatening him into silence. Ultimately, Frank and Joey arm themselves with pool cues to fashion stakes while Sammy searches for garlic in the kitchen. Joey refrains from assisting, fearing that killing Abigail would anger her father. Once prepared, the trio storms into Abigail's room only to find it vacant. Suddenly, they hear music and venture into another room, where they discover Abigail dancing with Dean's corpse. Initially portraying herself as innocent, Abigail attacks when Sammy makes a move, leaping onto her and sniffing the garlic, which proves ineffective. Frank is pushed away in his attempt to aid, but Peter succeeds in lifting her. Nonetheless, Abigail effortlessly flings him to the ground, seizing the cross from his necklace and striking his chest with it, causing him to bleed and confirming that crosses hold no power over her either. Following, Frank attempts to stab her from the rear. Nonetheless, Abigail swiftly disarms him and pierces his leg instead. Surrendering, the trio descends back downstairs where Joey tends to their injuries. She recalls that the injection proved effective during Abigail's abduction, and they still possess a spare dose. They agree to divide, and whoever locates the girl first must notify Joey via their earpieces so she can ambush her with a syringe. The team initiates a search of the residence, and Sammy ventures down a grimy hallway where she's startled by a swarm of bats. This startles her, causing her to tumble into a pool, and she shrieks upon realizing it's brimming with decomposing corpses. To exacerbate matters, she must maneuver across them to escape. Meanwhile, Abigail startles Peter, who flees in terror and secures the door behind him. However, Abigail smashes the door and continues pursuing him, employing ballet moves as she gives chase. Peter dashes as swiftly as possible when suddenly Frank unlatches a door and strikes him, resulting in his tumble from the railing. Subsequently, Abigail pursues Frank, shoving him down the stairs before pinning him beneath her. Joey seizes the opportunity to attempt an injection, but Abigail swats her hand away, causing the syringe to fly through a secured gate. Sammy seizes Abigail and pulls her away, prompting the latter to retaliate by sinking her teeth into Sammy's arm. Then, Abigail seizes Frank's leg and begins levitating, only for Peter to unexpectedly tackle her, causing her to release Frank. Peter restrains Abigail while Joey retrieves the syringe, promptly administering the sedative into Abigail. The child issues some grave warnings and hurls insults at Joey before losing consciousness. Sammy panics and ponders whether she'll undergo a transformation due to the bite. Shortly after, Abigail awakens confined in an elevator. Joey proposes that if she divulges the means of escape, they'll release her. Instead, Abigail admits to orchestrating everything and reveals that Lambert is under her employ. She even possesses knowledge of all their true identities and histories. Sammy initiated her career by siphoning funds from her affluent parents' account and eventually targeted a significant target. Peter acted as muscle for a criminal syndicate and pilfered from his associates. Frank infiltrated a specific criminal syndicate while employed as a detective and eventually embraced the illicit lifestyle. Joey, a former military medic, was dismissed for succumbing to medication addiction. And she abandoned her son with his abusive father to become an underground physician for some very dubious individuals. One day she inadvertently ended the life of a gang member while attempting to extract a bullet. It turns out everyone here has wronged Lazar or his syndicate in some manner, and Joey remarks that Abigail eliminates her father's adversaries simply to earn his affection. Abigail refrained from dispatching them immediately upon their arrival because she enjoys toying with her prey. She asserts that if they release her, she'll spare 2 of them. Frank proposes terminating her, so a furious Abigail amends the offer to only saving the one who aids her escape. Peter swiftly draws his firearm and Joey follows suit as she and Frank elucidate that Abigail is deceiving them. Since Peter attempts to liberate her regardless, Joey shoots him. Then the ensemble departs except for Frank, who offers to stand watch. Once everyone has left, Frank states he'll release her if she discloses the method to exit the residence. Abigail elucidates that he needs to pull Agatha Christie's tome in the library to unveil a concealed entrance. Frank expresses gratitude but declines to set her free. Consequently, Abigail effortlessly shatters the door to shove him and pirouettes towards him. At that instant, Joey arrives and dismantles wooden panels from a window, enabling sunlight to flood in. The sunlight promptly sears off Abigail's hand, prompting her to flee into the shadows to regenerate it while Joey and Frank flee. The entire group reaches the library and huddles beneath the sunlight streaming through the lofty window Joey previously opened. Sammy remains unaffected, so she's relieved, thinking she won't transform. Frank retrieves the book Abigail mentioned, but nothing occurs because she also deceived them. While he throws a fit, Joey attempts to demolish the wall to no avail. She's depleted her candy stash, so she's becoming increasingly agitated. Joey elucidates to Sammy that she abandoned her son to get sober, and the plan was to use the earnings from this job to reunite with him and start anew. The term reset sparks an idea in Sammy's mind. If they locate the power source, she can disrupt the locks. The team divides into 2 and scours the house. Suddenly, Abigail initiates the music again and takes command of Sammy through the bite. She swiftly undergoes transformation into a vampire and assaults Peter, sinking her teeth into his neck. Abigail communicates with him through Sammy while she continues to feed and ends his life. Then, Abigail enjoys manipulating Sammy to dance as she does. Eventually, Joey and Frank appear, so Sammy conceals her face. However, the others grow suspicious, prompting Sammy to reveal her transformation, and the pair immediately flees. Sammy pursues them, and they reach the library, where Abigail, using Sammy's voice, explains her disdain for that room because it's where her father transformed her. Joey grabs a tray and redirects the sunlight onto it, causing Sammy's body to burst. At that moment, a concealed door opens, and although Joey and Frank suspect it's a trap, they choose to proceed. After traversing a corridor, they discover the mansion's controls and Lambert, who is also a vampire. Lambert seizes Joey by the neck as he elaborates on everything. Abigail transformed him 2 years back when she discovered his aid to Frank in infiltrating the gang. She also menaced his family, and now his sole purpose is to lure all her father's adversaries here for her amusement. He's already informed Lazar about the predicament, and he's en route to the mansion. Lambert desires to eliminate both Abigail and her father, thus proposing to turn Frank if he pledges assistance. Frank consents, so Lambert incapacitates Joey and bites Frank. Then Lambert coerces Frank to consume his blood, and Joey awakens to witness Frank agonizingly metamorphosing into a vampire. Subsequently, Lambert instructs Frank to feed on Joey. Nevertheless, Frank impales him with a stake instead, resulting in Lambert's explosion. At that instant, Abigail appears and attempts to assault, but Frank overwhelms her and consumes her blood. Joey seizes the opportunity to access the control panel and disables the security measures. She also retrieves her phone. However, as she dashes down the concealed corridor, the exit is sealed. While Frank completes feeding on Abigail and discards her body, Joey contacts her son and leaves a heartfelt message on his voicemail. Frank locates her and promptly thrusts her back into the library, where he commences hurling her around to bash her against the furniture. Joey endeavors to defend herself, but her strikes have no effect on a vampire. Then she grabs her by the throat and hurls her downward, but Abigail catches her just in time. Abigail elucidates that she lacks the strength to vanquish him alone and implores Joey to aid in killing Frank, vowing to release her if she complies so she can reunite with her son. Frank approaches them, and the girls join forces to commence battling him, but regardless of their efforts, he's evidently stronger than both of them combined. After he topples Abigail, he impales Joey in the shoulder with the stake and lodges her on a pillar. Then he returns to combating Abigail, biting her once more, while the girl raises her pinky to remind Joey of their pledge. Once Abigail is incapacitated, Frank removes Joey from the stake and sinks his teeth into her neck before hurling her onto the floor. Upon awakening, Frank employs his vampire abilities to compel her to retrieve the stake and pursue Abigail. Nonetheless, Joey is feigning compliance, so she pivots and shoves Frank, affording Abigail the opportunity to pounce on him. She combats him once more while elucidating that the powers require some time to fully develop, so he cannot yet manipulate or metamorphose Joey. While they're preoccupied, Joey retrieves the stake and topples Frank. Then she and Abigail unite to impale him and cause him to explode. Following this, Joey frets that she might undergo transformation too, but Abigail assures her it won't occur because Frank is deceased. Honoring her word, Abigail releases Joey and instructs her to locate her son. Suddenly, someone grasps Joey's shoulder. It's Lazar, Abigail's father, who asserts he's gone by many names over the years. He intends to eliminate Joey. However, Abigail intercedes, affirming Joey saved her life and stood by her when he did not. Lazar relents and allows Joey to depart unscathed. As she enters her vehicle, Joey ultimately departs the terrifying mansion, en route to visit her son. This marks the conclusion of the film.